Hey all, Dave with Blues Games here with another edition of $20 MTG budget decks. Today's episode, we're going to do Orzhov or Black White Pestilence. This is a deck I've been playing for years. I have been playing this since roughly the beta days because a lot of these cards were available back then. This deck may not exactly be a specific type of legality. This is just for fun. It's your basic pro black deck, if you will. I actually made a version of this for a customer of mine, and he loved it so much. That's what started us off on our relationship. So let's see what the pro black creatures are going to be. Obviously, you got to have White Knight. It's the gold standard as far as pro black creatures go. It's 2 to gas 2/2 first strike pro black. I mean, it can't get any better than that. Pilgrim of Virtue. 1/3, not really that big on the offense, but it's good for defense, and it can get rid of pesky other black permanents, or damage from them anyway. Mystic Familiar, it doesn't start off with the pro black, but it does get it when you get Threshold. For those of you who don't know what Threshold is, you can read it there. You have Threshold as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So that's when you don't play these like early. You play them late game if you need to, so that they have the pro black right away. Also, another real advantage for this one is the flying that it gets without the threshold. So it's still a 1/2 flyer otherwise. Death Speakers. If you can't read that, I'll actually give you that one. Death Speakers is a 1 to cast 1/1 pro black creature. Like I said, lots of pro black here. The gold standard for White Knight was replaced in Ice Age with Order of White Shields and Order of Layet Bars, and they all are basically the same thing. 2 to cast 2/1 pro blacks that you can give first strike or +1/+0. There's many versions of these. Oh, there they are. Order of Layet Bars from Fallen Empires. Basically the same thing. 2 to cast 2/1 pro black can give +1/+0 and first strike if you need to. Alright, so those are all the pro black creatures that are in the deck. Essentially, they're used because you're going to be causing mass chaos with Pestilence. If you don't know what it is, it's an enchantment that reads, at the end of any turn, if there are no creatures in play, you have to sacrifice for the most part. Bury means basically you just have to sacrifice Pestilence. And for each black that you pay into it, it deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. So the theory is that you get down a whole bunch of these white weenie pro black creatures, send them at your opponent, put down a Pestilence, basically start doing damage to both their creatures because they have pro black, they don't take the damage, and deal damage to your opponent with the Pestilence. So you should be ahead on life, and this should clear the board, and you should end up being left with nothing but your own creatures, and that will keep the Pestilence in play. I put 3 of those in there. I would have put 4. I thought 4 was overkill. So the second part, if you don't feel like doing damage to yourself, I threw in here some Circles of Protection Black. For those of you who have never seen these before, basically for every time a black source deals damage to you, pay 1 and just prevent that damage. So it's a little expensive with Pestilence because you have to pay 1 for each time you activate Pestilence, but sometimes that can be the difference between you living and dying ahead of your opponent. So I threw 3 of them in as well. Then I have a couple of, I guess, creature removal spells for in case for some reason Pestilence doesn't seem to get it done. There is enough creatures in here that you'll be able to use Bone Splinters effectively, especially on like Death Speakers or anything that really isn't too big or important. So you can go ahead and get rid of some of those pesky opponent's creatures. The other thing you can do, I put Devour Flesh in here so your opponent has to choose what he wants to put out there. Unless you're playing against an opponent who's doing a ton of tokens, this deck usually can be crippling. And again, you don't really have to worry about the toughness the toughness of the creature and their gain life ability for this card, because the Pestilence will take care of most of that. Assassinate was for getting rid of creatures that they leave back so that they can actually block your creatures, like in case they're playing stuff that might be either pro-white or anything that can take a 2/2 first striker or a 2/1 first striker. That was to get the ones they leave back in the way out of there. Grisly Spectacle, again, more creature removal. The second part of this ability of this card doesn't really make sense, doesn't really help anything. It's just added bonus for you. Anytime you can deny your opponent resources, it's always a good thing. Asphyxiate, again, destroying an untapped creature, that way that you can get rid of blockers out of your way. Murderous Cut, you can't really recur anything in this deck anyway. Anything that might be in the way, you just take care of immediately. I can't actually see you using anything in your graveyard again, so it is basically just to get rid of creatures at a cheaper cost. Alright, so the rares that I chose for this deck. Obviously, we're not using the ready part of this card. We're using the willing part. So for 1 black, 1 white, and 1 of any, creatures you control gain death, touch, and lifelink. That's the little tech that I put in here just so that I could make it so that you could get ahead on life. If you can get ahead on life with the lifelink part of this, that it would be helpful with the Pestilence. Dawn Elemental. Very, very hard to cast because of the 4 white, but you do get bonuses out of this, of it being flying. And also, you can prevent all damage dealt to him, so it's a good blocker. It can survive Pestilence. It's good for a lot of things. The flying really helps, though, because as a flying blocker that doesn't take damage, it really can save you. Alright, Honor the Pure. You're playing all white creatures. It's basically a white weenie deck, but with the little added bonus of it having Pestilence, and all the creatures are kind of protected from it. So Honor the Pure gives all those creatures +1/+1, make them a little bit bigger. The special card was in Garrick's Wake. If for some reason the game goes this long, it's another version of basically doing Pestilence. Hopefully you won't need this, but if you do, it'll work in really well. It's basically a one-side Wrath of God or a one-side Planar Cleansing so that you don't get affected by it. Alright, now the land are basic swamps and basic lanes. And then you have a playset of Orzhov Guild Gates. Now, what I didn't see in here was Evolving Wilds or a Terramorphic Expanse. By the time the con gets here, I will have added those into the deck. I may have run out to get more, so I'll go ahead and add them in beforehand, so you don't have to worry about bad land draws. So, that is Orzhov or Black-White Pestilence, an older style deck from way back in the day. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and do them below. Please make sure to like us on Facebook, like and share the video if you like what you see. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing a whole lot more. Again, thank you for watching, and have a good day.